Hello and welcome to another episode of the Breathing Body podcast. My name is Flurina and I'm your host. And if you have been listening to this podcast in the past, you know that this podcast invites you to meet your body and invites your body to meet you in a deeper and more meaningful way and to find your way back home. And together with many wonderful guests, we explore tools and practices, share stories and experiences about how we can say yes to the body we inhabit. And for me, that's just the most beautiful project life has to offer, and I call this self-love. And yes, this podcast is also for you, sister woman out there, to access an archive of inspiration and resources to find freedom in relationship to food and your body. Healing through disordered eating invites us to arrive in our body and to give her a voice. And yes, this opens the space to live a life beyond your wildest dreams. And today's episode is such a lush and loving and joyful one. I'm talking with the wonderful Isabella Kilian, my dear friend Bella. Bella's passion for dance has been a lifelong journey. She began with ballet during her early years, and then that evolved into a love for Latin American partner dances. She then went on and studied contemporary dance for 3 years in Munich, and then continued her body studies and moved to the UK, where she studied osteopathy. And that's where we met. We were beloved room flatmates during our studies in Maidstone. And after she graduated, she continued on her very own path and she developed her own movement workshops, which she calls Soul Contact. And this unique workshop has been a highlight at festivals across Europe, attracting participants eager to explore the nuances of movement and connection. And that's exactly what today's episode is about. It is about the work Bella is doing today, which is, she is dedicated to create workshops which empower individuals to embrace their body's natural flow, to deepen their connections with themselves and others, and discover the joy of truly listening to their bodies. That's enough words. Let's go on. Let's listen to what we talked about. I hope you enjoy this episode and that you find some inspiration for your own movement practice and life. And I'm so much looking forward to hear from you, to read your comments and feedbacks. And if you do enjoy this podcast and this episode, please leave a 5-star review, share it with all your friends, share it on social media. That's a huge support for me to keep this project going. Lots of love and enjoy. Welcome, Bella, on the podcast.
Hello, Flurina. Thanks for having me.
It's so wonderful, and I think it feels very special and meaningful, actually, because I was just thinking 3 years ago, we're still living together in Pine Grove 26 in Maidstone, trying to become osteopath. Well, we did it. And who would have thought, Bella? Well, you were the first person to whom I talked about my podcast idea. So yes, probably we did think that one day you might be here.
Maybe.
But how wonderful that you are now here on the show, on my podcast. And I think what we both share is that both our lives have never not been about the body and movement. That's that big. That's so true, right?
Yes. And you were the one person in the UK inspiring me to see the body in this more poetic way. You know, it was sometimes very easy to get stuck in this mental model of like, oh, and this is this bone, and you do this, and this is evidence-based, it's not evidence-based. And then you come and you're like, and the body is breathing. And then, you know, you were like, it had all this beautiful language for, describing what you were doing, what you were feeling, how you interacted with the body. And that was so nourishing for me. And having you like first line, you know, living next door, just like, hey, I need some inspiration.
That is actually so true, Bella, because now remember, this is actually a wonderful little history session for all the listeners too about the story before I made the podcast, because indeed Bella was one of the first. We would have a dinner, maybe once a month, we'd have dinner together. It was our date nights.
Sourdough pizza.
It was our date nights. And we would just share what's alive in us, what's in our hearts. And we would really share our visions and dreams with each other. That's something I so still value about our friendship, that there is space to dream indefinitely. And one evening I shared with you about a podcast, and you said, Bella, your idea was to call it body poetry, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I know, I'm calling myself body
Absolutely.
poetry.
And I looked it up, and I think I saw another podcast called Body Poetry. So I said, I can't quite name it that, but now stage open for you, Bella, because you call your work partly Bella's body poetry. Let's start there. How did you came to that name, Bella's body poetry?
Well, I guess all my journey that I've done, so first with dancing loads, studying dance, just like you as well. I did a contemporary dance education, and then I did osteopathy. And I think the common thread there always was that I felt there is something more to what I'm doing, but I didn't grasp it. You know, I was studying dance, I was moving my body, and it felt somehow empty and yet full of potential. And I was like, there is something more to that. I want to find a way to work with my body, not against my body. And most of my dance, maybe you can relate to that. Most of the dance education, you're so in this, I have to be good, I have to do that, so that you completely miss the essence of what you're actually doing. So I was like, I want to find a way to work with my body. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do osteopathy. It works with the body, doesn't it? I thought I'm going to rock up there, feel each other's auras, and be like, oh, so nice. I can feel your body. Rose reds. Ocean seas, whatever. But indeed, it wasn't like this. It was quite evidence-based, which was very important, a very good lesson for me to also think about the body like through that slightly different lens. But still, there was this yearning in me. What is there? You know, everyone was arguing in clinic. All our tutors like, no, you can't do this technique. No, this is wrong. This is right. So dual, like such a dual way of thinking about the body. And I was like, where did I end up again? And there was a lot of frustration, a lot of layers that I had to let go what I believed about the body. And yet I still didn't arrive to my own truth. That was until the until I finished studying osteopathy last year. And I went to a dance body retreat with my now teacher, Shandi Liberato, who I'm now studying with the Liberato method. And he is combining body work, but has a strong foundation in partner dance and connection and body flow. And I went to this retreat and something happened in me. We did this geometric type of dancing, and something in my body was like, ooh, I'm allowed to let go. And then this theme of letting go of control came so big, surrendering. And then I did this other movement workshop with Humanhood Dance Company, who also base their work in organic movement, letting the movement unfold from within, not putting your body in certain shapes, but letting it express. And often it's just like, throwing one limb in one direction and seeing how the rest of your body reacts. And that was very much the embodiment, I would say, of my life theme, letting go of control and letting your body unfold, speak for itself, getting out of this right and wrong perspective, and in my sense, moving closer to the essence also. And that then transferred also into my body work. I was like, oh, maybe it's not important what technique I'm doing. No. Maybe it's just about the quality of presence, with how much attention I'm there, with how much openness I allow this being to unfold, express. And same for dancing. And the more I study, the more I'm like, oh, everything is the same. So there are many, many different layers to this poetic way of being, I would say.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I think what really touched me and I can relate to is when you said exactly you went from one training to the other, right? Starting with ballet and then the dance and the osteopathy, constantly trying to find that answer. You were seeking for something, and it would be so tempting, or it would be so nice if if we would just get it from a textbook or from a teacher, we could just do the degree and then we got it. But really what I hear is that, yeah, you had to go through all those trainings to find out you can actually only find it in yourself. And I mean, Bella, I'm the best example of chasing one course after the other, right? I'm a really studious student and I love it. But I also had to acknowledge that that's not how I find, you said, that's not how I'm going to arrive at my own truth. Isn't it? Yes, it gives us, I'm now thinking, aren't all those courses, maybe also in your life, actually, they kind of nudge you again into a different path, but the path is actually not the course.
Yes, and yet you have to do that exact path to arrive where you are today, and to go through all the frustrations and letting go of your beliefs multiple times, just so you can find, oh, that's not the truth. What is the truth then?
Yes.
And that can ever change and ever unfold again and again and again and again. And that's beautiful. And I think that's also the magic when working with the body, when working with people, to staying open to the process, to engaging with the body and with people in a way that allows you not to know.
I love that you remind us all for that. Yes. Staying open to the process and allow ourselves not to know. And that applies to anything we do in life, right?
Exactly. And this is also, in the bodywork perspective, the first taster I got from you there as well, during the course. You were always, when we were practicing craniosacral techniques, you were always saying, how does this body want to be touched? And that's it. It's like, not, oh, I know what this body needs. I know, no, but I'm listening. I'm staying curious to this being in front of me. And then something happens that's just different.
Yeah, and then you say something happens, what I think I found out for myself, realized again in the last half year, couple of months. Isn't it that moment, Bella, when we move, I call it now, when I move from a passive state into a creative process, then transformation happens. And that's, maybe you mean the same, if something happens. Yeah, what happens then? What is it? What happens there? intuition takes over. No, I don't know.
It's like a sinking.
What do you mean with that?
Isn't it? In osteopathy, we call it the still point. There is something we just allow to be. So, for example, for everyone who doesn't maybe know what the still point is, in osteopathy, especially in craniosacral osteopathy, we connect with the body in a certain way without trying to change it. So, for example, if there is a lesion in the arm, then instead of pulling and stretching, we allow the body to be in this maybe contracted, maybe shrunken position. We just stay present with that. And exactly. We're like, oh, you're there. Okay, I'm there with you. And then without intending to create change, we just allow the body its own time to unravel. And the still point is that crucial point where this change happens. So where the so we're moving into the very core of the dysfunction. This is the still point, and then from there is another movement happening.
Yeah, a reorganization, right? Or
Yes. Yeah. And I've encountered this concept in multiple different fields. For example, I don't know if you know focusing therapy.
Not very familiar with that, no.
It's so it's a kind of talking therapy where it's about the quality of listening. And so instead of trying to chase the answers or build bridges to reach from A to B, you allow this thinking and this talking through the body. So for example, you're not like, oh, maybe I'm doing this because I'm doing this, but you're saying, oh, I notice this. How does it feel in my body? And then through letting it kind of sink into your body, there is some change happening. It's like, so you not go from A to B, you allow the sinking and then the diving up again.
You allow what that makes that, maybe I'm completely wrong, but what I hear is it sounds like one allows to actually really feel almost drop into the physical sensation of the feeling and emotion. And that's where it is within the I mean, any feeling starts as a sensation, right? And it's within the feeling where intuition resides. That's just a fact. So, wow.
Yeah. Now I forgot what I wanted to say there.
That's okay. You said the word ungraspable, and I guess that's the beauty about that whole conversation we're having today, right? It feels it's so real and it's so pure and raw, and because it's our nature, but it's so hard to put in words, and that's why we lose the words.
Yeah, and I know it now again, and it's this not wanting. There is a certain delay. I think we all are operating in this doing mindset, in this wanting to control mindset. It's like, oh, this is a problem. And what do I need to do to fix? And blah, 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 blah. Someone is saying something. I need to blah, 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 blah. We're always in this control. And when we allow ourselves to just sit back, lean back, delay our response, just surrendering to whatever wants to happen by itself, loosening the shackles a little bit, then this process can start somehow.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? You experienced me a lot during the 4 study years. I'm revealing my true self here, which sometimes was a roller coaster from one burnout to the next. Constantly hiding my secret eating struggles, right? What do I try to say? And yes, one big thing how I feel healed myself from the course, from that crazy master degree, was again allowing myself to take breaks, Bella. I had this revelation last summer.
Yeah.
I suddenly noticed actually all I need is breaks. And that, when you say delay, I can absolutely, it felt like, wow, these delays were such a feed forward, actually. It kind of takes courage to take a break, I feel.
Exactly. That was just about to say. It's so courageous because when you take a break, you have to stay present with all of that you would usually cope with, I don't know, doing another course, running around, overworking, burning yourself out. Is much harder to take a break and to just stay present. And I really, now looking back and listening to your podcast and listening to your story, I was like, yes, she did that. There's an element of surrendering. And like, yes, it is like that. And it's okay. And then the grief comes and and then there is some beauty in what then comes next. Maybe is something essential that wants to come out, because you're no longer trying to grasp, you're no longer trying to save yourself in a way.
Absolutely.
You're just like, oh, okay, I really went rock bottom. I felt all I needed to feel. And what is true and what wants to come? What am I here to do? And I saw that process in you, and it was beautiful.
Yes, and it's exactly in those moments, I so agree, Bella. It's in those moments when we then, whatever we call it, delay, inhibit, take a break, and drop into that physicality, right? And I mean, that's why our lives are all about bodies, drop into that very physical matter we are. And if after, I don't know, just being, literally not even reading anything, just being for half an hour, and we then ask ourselves, what's the next step? I've never not had any of those breaks where I did not just hear the next step. I was yesterday, I went to a gig with my partner who's a musician, and I would be sitting there and just listening with no agenda, nothing to do. And I was I literally felt I was surfing these landscapes of jazz music, and suddenly I couldn't stop writing down ideas for upcoming posts. And I'm always again amazed at myself. How wow.
And you weren't trying.
No.
That's the best part, isn't it? So you're always working and you're never working. That's probably what you would call the feminine way.
And that's what and that's exactly what I mean about having a life beyond your wildest dreams. I so keep sharing that. I stand behind it. And no, it has nothing to do with money or with how my house looks like, but a life where we can just flow from one of those impulses to the next. That's for me is a life beyond my wildest dreams. Yes, 100%.
And I also have a question about that sitting down and asking what's the next step. Do you always know, or are there times where you don't know? And what do you do when you don't know? And how do you navigate that?
So who is interviewing here, I think that is such a beautiful and wonderful question. And I believe, and I know that's triggering for some people, I know for myself that we always know if we let go of the expectation of how that step needs to look like. Sometimes it's maybe literally I get up and I jog around the house, or I just dress tonight, or I change my jumper. It can be teeny tiny, but I believe we always know what's and who knows, I had this the other day, I felt actually changing clothes. I'm very hot. I went to my bedroom and I changed clothes, and here was that thing I had for a long time, and then it kept rolling. But I think sometimes when I share this with people, they think, oh, it needs to be this big, clear step. But if it's just teeny tiny, I have so much time off at the moment. I stay off just when I work for my self-employed, and that's how my days roll out.
Probably, though, for you, that means I have so much time off every Sunday morning from 9 till 11. I have time off. Where do I go for holiday?
But I'm glad that you asked her to say that, because I think it's just quite a new concept and it's a new concept for me too. I'm not saying that I'm mastering it. I didn't grow up necessarily trusting that. But so you talked about, I want to dig a little bit deeper in there. You talked about that delay and that not wanting to stay open to the process, letting go of control. And I'm really curious, and I'm sure the listeners are too, Bella, how can that look like, or how can we incorporate that? Maybe both. Maybe first you share about how can that look like in a movement practice, but also day to day in daily life. We're talking all these beautiful things, but now let's get to the point.
So interesting question. So I've experienced it a lot in partner dance. In my training to become Liberato method teacher, we talk a lot about this delay concept. And in the beginning, I was practicing delay concept without necessarily understanding that it's far more deep than I thought in the moment. And it was when a partner gives you an impulse, if you observe beginners trying to, partner for the first time, it goes, so the information goes to their head, and then they want to execute. So for example, I am giving the impulse of pulling someone's arm. Before the impulse reaches through all the joints, arrives in the body, and then makes the body move, the brain hijacks. It's like, oh, this person wants me to go. And then there is this magic lost of how delicious it feels to just let the movement arrive to the end of your joint, to the end of your body. And then it also changes your movement, because you can feel the richness of the impulse. So if I just get impulse pull, then okay, move forward. But there are millions of ways how I can move forward. And by hijacking through my brain, I miss all the deliciousness. And then I was like, oh, that's the same with life, man. If I just think I should do this, I'm losing the juice of the process, the juice of the moment, the sensuality of it. If I'm waking up and think, oh, today I need to do this, maybe I'm not smelling the spring smells. Maybe I'm not enjoying my morning coffee, like something that you like doing a lot. Maybe I'm not feeling how nice my clothes feel on my body today. And it's about that slowing down and enjoying the little things that make life so sensual and so precious. And when we're in that state, that more present state, like you shared earlier with your jazz club, you're so present and you're receiving some downloads, like, oh, and I could do this, because you're connected to some kind of flow, you're connected to joy, you're connected to some spark. And then it just keeps, and it's like this, it's this constant infinity motion of you give, you receive, you give, you receive. And in this Liberato method, we also work a lot with this infinity sign, and we try to embody the never-ending motion in the body. I'm just starting to dance already.
Wow. Yeah, what I really hear there is, can we actually, in the end you said the word receive, but I've written it down before you said it. Can we receive? Can we actually really fully receive before we react and do? And I love how you say delicious and actually taste. We can taste not only foods, right? We can taste whatever we do in life. We can taste how the feet meet the ground or whatever it is. But can we receive and maybe have, you said the word sensuality, and that obviously really sings to my heart. I believe centrality, that is the true language of our body, and that's a universal language, right? So now I have this image of, can we actually have a real moment of just being sensory, or just sense? What if we had a moment of pure sensation before anything we say or anything we do?
Exactly. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, the connection and flow workshops. For example, I'm offering spaces where people can practice to be in that state.
How do you teach that to people? Sounds difficult.
I'm just giving them exercises that require them to be present, to listen to each other, to explore the delay in their body, to get in from that state of stress and control into a more release state, surrender state. And it's really beautiful to observe the participants who come. Usually they come kind of a little bit wired, like, a bit nervous, what's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. You can see that in their eyes, in their faces, their body language, everything is a bit tense. And then after the workshop, everyone just like melts in the circle and no one wants to leave anymore. It's this feeling of, there's nothing I need to do now.
Well, isn't that, I would say, it's coming home, right? And it's something so distant or far away from us that we might feel afraid and nervous in the beginning. Absolutely. But if we dare to explore it, it's actually, it cannot not get more familiar the more we probably are encouraged to sense. Because I probably mentioned the embryo in every podcast I record, I think, but of course I have to think back of the embryo. Before we we spoke anything, we were just a sensorium. Being in the womb is a sensory experience. So that's the oldest, the deepest knowledge we hold in our bodies.
Yes.
Which is so beautiful.
And I've experienced this shift in state so profoundly in myself when I went to this dance retreat after the studies. I only then realized how wired I was before, because I was at the end of the workshop, I was dancing all week long. And then we had the sharing circle. And what I shared was, I'm just sitting here, and just sitting here feels so delicious. Like, I love how my legs feel. I like how my pelvis feels. Everything feels so soft and melting. I have nowhere there's any pain in my body. And then I realized, wow, I've been in a constant anxious state before. And then it's like, okay, there is a different way to exist too.
A different way to exist. And that again is sometimes triggering for people, but it's our decision how we want to exist on this earth, right? And I fully stand behind it. Because it's a practice and we need to commit to delay and to sense. But it's my decision if I fall into bed in the evening and I feel I'm just burnt out, exhausted, and there was 0% of deliciousness.
But I also think that everyone has a process with it. And I don't think that one can force oneself or someone else into that. There needs to be a hunger for change, a kind of fed upness with your state. And I don't know how it was for you, but for me, certainly, I was looking for that state for ages, my entire life, without knowing what it was. But there was always a sense of there must be something else. What is the essence? What is wrong? What is wrong with me? I don't think this is the way to be. And then there was a fed upness, and then comes a willingness to change. And also in the workshops, I try to let the process of each participant unfold. I can see, for example, oh, okay, the delay hasn't arrived in the body, but I'm not saying anything. I'm just noticing, and I'm giving suggestions and hints, and maybe try to release your chest, maybe try to do this. And then they will hear it and they will apply it when they're ready. But you can't force anyone into that. You can just give the opportunity.
Open the space and
Yes.
Bella, I would love for all the listeners who maybe are not based in Munich and can't right now work with you, but can you give us how for all the listeners who do have a movement practice, I mean, if it's running or yoga, whatever it is, but can you give us some tips or ideas or impulses? How can we engage? What would be ways to start to engage that process in whatever movement practice or practice we have or we do, to find that sense of flow and sensuality?
I think it doesn't have to be so complicated. You could just take 10 minutes per day and allow your body to move in whatever way that feels good. Either before going to bed, not trying to do any specific exercises, but really connecting to, okay, where does my body feel tight? Where does it maybe need a little bit more space? And then allowing that space. As simple as that. I also love imagining if we're going now more into the stretching, mobility type, types of movement. I like to imagine my body as this interconnected web. We call there is this web of fascia covering all the muscles that basically connect us from head to toe. And I like imagining my body as this web. And instead of thinking, oh, I'm just stretching my arm, finding ways of stretching my entire web, expanding the entire web, finding space, allowing to open. Yeah.
And for everyone who finds maybe even that challenging, could they, I sometimes think a nice way is just play your favorite song, some music which you really love. And exactly, just close your eyes, close the curtains. To just, I mean, what happens there? We tap from kind of trying to make a shape or copy or do something which we think is right. And that's where we started, that there is no right and wrong. Tapping into whatever unfolds. You said in the beginning, what unfolds in the moments.
Yeah. Yes. Or if a movement is not your entry point, it could be over taste. It could be, oh, I'm cooking a really nice dinner. I'm really taking time to make a special recipe, looking at all the different colors of the vegetables, taking my time to chopping all of that, making that a central experience. Or maybe it's a walk in the forest. Or maybe it's really listening to one song. Just putting one song and really listening. What else can I hear? What I have missed, maybe. It's about presence. It doesn't really matter how you do it, just with what attention and what presence you can give to it. And that's not so easy. It's not so easy. I struggled sometimes with that too, especially if I'm stressed or a bit dysregulated. But then I just trust, okay, it will come back and I will do it when I can. So also being kind.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, or really curious about, how do you deal with these situations where you actually find it difficult to manage and to cope with life? And well, maybe you partly answered that question too. You said trust. Maybe we need to do less than we think we need to do in those moments.
Yeah, definitely. I struggle with life all the time. I often get really overwhelming feelings that I'm not quite conscious where they come from, and then I struggle to do the things that I know I should be doing. And I think what has changed since my initial dip and then kind of this new unfolding of this new sense of being was that whenever I feel a taste of that drop, the more often it happens, the more trust I develop and the more gentle I allow myself to be with myself, and the less I dramatize all the feelings that are coming. And it's like a resurrendering each time. And it's not easy. There was one woman, she's a movement teacher, Sarah. She said, maybe life is a constant research. And I think it's beautiful because it allows the sense of getting lost. Because I think when we live in that way, in this kind of inspired, creative way, I think it's natural to sometimes lose it. And that feels dramatic to begin with, maybe. For me, it definitely felt, the first time I felt so connected to the deliciousness in my body. I was like, oh, now I cracked the code. And then I lost it. And I was like, oh, it was all an illusion. I was wrong. Everything I was thinking is not true. All the choices I then made were bad. But now I'm just like, okay, I'm just having a drop. It's okay. And it will come back and I will be able to engage in my sensual body again when the time is right. And when and sometimes I don't manage to do that for a day or two, and I feel sad. I'm like, what's wrong? But then I trust, okay, it will come back. And then being gentle with myself and the sense of surrender. Okay, it is the way it is. And then a little spark maybe comes, or I learn more what has helped me last time. For me, it's always moving with other people. Sometimes it's really hard for me to arrive in that present space with my own body when I'm by myself. But when I have some external stimulation, I just arrive there suddenly. When I have movement tasks, do this, then you have no choice but play. And then you're like, oh, maybe life isn't so serious.
Yeah, I think you mentioned two really nice things in that moment where we feel, I mean, I see life like waves, and every wave once goes down and then it goes up again. But the down is as much a part of life like the up, right? And maybe it's or we can feel as much as we can in the down as in the up, and just the moment we actually just surrender to I feel the moment I surrender to the just very sensory experience of that drop, it actually changes. And also I love your input of just moving on, of actually not over-analyzing, of exactly maybe going to a class, meeting up with friends to, I mean, emotions are energy in motion. So I believe if we move when we feel super emotional, then something shifts.
Yeah, and not judging ourselves. That's so important.
That is, too. And also for the movement, right? To endless curiosity. Bella, how does your morning routine look like? You get up in the morning. How is your morning routine?
I'm the worst person to ask then. Sometimes I hit snooze 5 times because I've been dancing until 3 a.m. Then I just drag myself out of bed and just go to the place I need to go. Sometimes when I have a really good morning, then I start with movement, usually with something that is alive. Moving, feeling my body, drinking a nice cup of coffee, breathing the fresh air, maybe going outside. So I don't really have a regular routine. And that's something I've been trying to establish for many years, but then I also just said, maybe I'm just not such a regular person, and that's okay.
Not a routine is also routine, and it's maybe really encouraging for all the people who think, oh, in order to be such a mover, I need to get up at 4 and do my yoga, my dance. No, it doesn't matter when we do it.
It doesn't matter because you maybe know also that sense of when you get this inspiration spark, this is when you do something. And if it's 3 a.m., it's 3 a.m. For me, at least, it's like that. And I just allow myself to go with that flow to a certain extent. Sometimes I notice, okay, I'm getting a bit manic. I'm getting a bit in my too artistic vibe. And then I lose my structured, organized self. And then I recalibrate a little bit. Okay, Bella, regular exercise, regular strength training, regular fresh air. Then I kind of shift myself. Like I'm always moving on the spectrum. And there is a certain point at the spectrum of controlling too much where I don't feel good. And a certain spectrum of too much going with the flow, releasing that also doesn't feel good. So you could say managing the inner masculine, feminine energies. I know that some people don't like using these words because they're like gendered.
Well, it's just archetypal, right? We both have masculine, feminine quality, and ideally we throughout life at one point find some kind of a balance. I love those two terms.
Yes, me too. I just know that some people don't like it because it has a gender attached to it. So why does the feminine have to be flowy, blah, blah, blah. So it could be same like yin and yang, the flowy, soft, malleable, and then the more directionate, strong, structured. Some kind of polarity in which we always move. I think that's the essence of it. And in the end, it doesn't really matter how we call. With some people, it resonates, masculine, feminine. With some people, it doesn't. That's fine.
Wow. Bella, if there was one thing you could gift to every listener, the one thing you really want to, the one word or sentence or impulse or whatever it is, you want to share with everyone, what would that be?
I think it's allow yourself to do what moves you, inspires you, and makes you feel alive. And I think that's very much the ethos of your podcast, isn't it? The world doesn't need more people that don't ask yourself what the world needs.
Ask yourself what
makes me feel alive. Because then you get in this creative state, in this, you open your heart and you have so much more to give. And so, allow yourself to do what inspires you, what makes you feel alive, what makes you smile, what makes you joyful.
Because that's what feels light and spacious, at least to me. And once, because of, as you know, this podcast is also about eating disorder recovery. And when we allow ourselves through those things which make us come alive, then, and you said finding our own truth in the very beginning, then that's how I found my own truth and my true self. And I didn't have to use any compensatory starving mechanisms to feel light. So that's a one.
Letting go of the control. Also for you now,
absolutely.
Letting go of this control.
Lean into the river of life. Wow, Bella, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your life, your path will still go on for many, many, many years, for sharing a glimpse of what you're busy with at this moment. And I'm looking forward to talk with you again in a couple of years and find out where your path led you to.
Me too, Flurina. It's always so good to follow what you're doing. Oh, now she's like that. Oh, now it's like ever unfolding with you.
Exactly. Never arriving and always arriving at the same time, you know?
Yes. And I feel very grateful that we can share this space and that you were also the beginning of that body spark for me. And now we're here. It's beautiful. Thank you for having me.
Wow. I feel my heart wide open, happy and inspired myself, and so grateful that Bella came onto the podcast and shared her story and her work with us. And talking to Bella inspired me to trust these moments of delay, or to lean into the delay, to lean into these moments of complete break, pause, inhibition, potent emptiness. I hope that you enjoyed this episode too, and I'm looking forward to read your comments, your thoughts about it. And what is left to say, I wish you a wonderful rest of your morning, day or evening. It's so wonderful that you're part of this community, that you are listening to the breathing body. And I'm just so happy to do this for and with you, and I'm sending you all my love, lots of love. Trust your heart, feet and belly.